this is an investable point or an investable thesis here that changes the boat rocking that's happening now. That doesn't go away. Even if Trump goes away in 4 years, I don't think the Europeans decide, oh, well, that was just Trump. We can trust America the way we did before. I don't see that happen. They're going like, wow, these Americans, they elected Trump twice. Maybe it's better now, but we can't take the chance that there won't be another Trump or an even Trumpier Trump in the future, right? So I think the changes that we're seeing in the world now, they have investment consequences. The most obvious one is Europe's rearmament. I mean, wow, we are celebrating Germany rearming. What kind of world is that, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian. Most of you know me as Triangle Investor from social media. My guest today is Louis James, aka Lobo Tiggre of the Independent Speculator, someone who I always enjoy talking to, someone who has been pretty right about a lot of things. Lobo, it has been a while since you were in my show. Thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be back. It just occurs to me we both have an AKA.
Yeah.
Where did the triangle thing come from?
It came from one of I had a really big gain from one of this company in the Golden Triangle,
Ah,
and and that is how my handle was born
nice.
in that way. It was a pretty big gain. I will tell you after this show what was the gain. So triangle comes from the from the Golden Triangle. This is exclusive. You're the first one to know, by the way. Lobo, first I want to hear a few things from Lobo Tigre, aka Dart Silver, about silver, of course. And the question is quite simple, actually. I will not be one of those who ask, will we see $80, $200 silver? My question is simple. Will we see $40 or $50 silver anytime soon?
Well, as you're asking, we are within kissing distance of 35, which is a significant number. That's I'm not a TA, but my friends who are TAs say that, 35 was a ceiling that it bumped off of before. So piercing that would be significant. It's interesting that we're there. The answer to the question, if we step back a little bit, is actually I'm very bullish on gold this year. I'm very bullish on copper this year. I don't know if we've spoken about that or not, but yeah, I'm extremely bullish on copper. And with silver frequently acting like an alloy of the two, at least, on the markets, how can you not be bullish on silver in that environment? If I was bearish on copper, like worried about the industrial metal side of silver, then I'd be in a different place.
Mhm.
But, so $40 is easy to see, depending on what you mean by anytime soon.
Well, I mean, like maybe 3 or 4 months max.
Yeah, I think that's easy. 50 is a nominal all-time high, which is overdue, but that's still a pretty big move from where we are now. So the way I would look at that is, we're at, as you and I speak, we're at a critical moment, a critical level with gold at over 3,000. And either, in my mind, either that triggers, all the headlines, all the excitement, the awareness that the miners are just printing money at these levels, right? Even the crappy ones are seeing margin expansion. And that's a technical description
Of
of
course,
miners.
of course.
So in that environment, it's possible to see that just that round number causes the next leg up. It just causes the media attention and the generalist investors to say, oh, we're missing something over here, and to pile in. On the other hand, that same thing could trigger, oh, look at that. Our targets have been reached. I'm going to take some profits here. That could cascade, trigger stops. And the very same thing, the very same cause could either make it, hockey stick up or down.
Yeah.
In that context, that could affect silver too, right? So my answer would be let's watch it. If we get that hockey stick up, 40 is easy. 50 is actually not that big an ask at all. If market goes into correction for a while, then yeah, it's going to be later. But for what it's worth, I don't do crystal ball
Of
predictions.
course.
But for what it's worth, it feels very strong to me. My old wolf whiskers are twitching here. I don't see the near-term bear case other than the technicals. And the central bank buying is not going away. And okay, they're not buying silver, they're buying gold, but silver is tracking gold this year. So yeah, I'm not making any promises here. My objective is to make money for my clients, and we're doing fine. Thank you very much. But
Yeah.
you asked, and my answer is I have a feeling that we probably will see that 40 before too long, and I
Yeah.
would 50 out.
Great overview. I really like your view. You mentioned central banks not buying silver. Do you see a scenario where central banks would add silver in the mix and store it in their
No.
vaults, if, of course, they found such a big vault for that?
Well, so there you go. It's not just size though. Silver tonnages, right? I mean, even the gold at Fort Knox is said to be kept in sealed drums, and that's gold. Like if you had silver, you imagine like there's how many million ounces of gold supposedly at Fort Knox, supposedly, right? Well, maybe we'll find out this year, right? But if you had to go polish all those millions, I don't know, there's like thousands and thousands of bars, that'd be a big deal. So no, I mean, but I'm sort of making fun of it a little bit, but no, there's a serious issue with the higher cost to storing silver. There's just no point. Further, I'm not joining the Bitcoin fixes that crowd exactly, but blockchain does fix this. If you ever really monetize those assets, or if gold goes back into circulation, if only as backing, like gold-backed crypto or something like that, you don't need silver anymore to make change. So this is what gets me called Darth Silver. People get very mad when I say that even if we do go back on a gold standard, there's no guarantee it'll be bimetallic, let alone trimetallic. Pennies are going away, we hear. But that doesn't mean that silver no longer has value. It just, to answer your specific question, is I'm not betting on it going back into circulation ever. And that means there's no reason for central banks. These are banks. These aren't silver stackers. These aren't industrial interests that will use the silver, for photovoltaics or to make spoons or whatever, right? These are banks.
Yeah.
So I just don't see it. No.
Okay, we agreed that silver is going up. How much we don't, of course, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. But what will drive silver price higher? What is the crucial catalyst to give the heavy lifting?
I'm not sure it needs one. I mean, rather, I would say that, my primary answer right now is gold. If gold remains on a tear, I don't see silver getting left behind. The silver gold ratio might actually widen. I could see gold going, ripping up to 3,500 and silver still just kind of tagging along underneath, but it'll go up, right? Even if it doesn't hit nominal all-time highs, it'll go up. And by the way, a nominal all-time high for silver is a big move. It's triple digits. I haven't looked recently, but it was well over $100 last time I looked. It might be over 200 that you mentioned now. That might be where that number comes from. I don't know, but it is a big move.
It is.
And I'm not saying that can't happen, but I don't think that never mind my wolf whiskers, but the silver's failure in 2020, right? It was the I've fallen and can't get up medal in 2020, whereas gold came screaming back, right? I think that's data worth remembering, and the industrial side is worth remembering. So, it doesn't have to do what it did before. But you know what? If it goes to 50, the silver miners who are, their mines were built with much lower prices in mind. That's a fantastic price for the business. And so I really don't care whether we get a new real all-time high or not. If it goes up, the silver miners that have projects of real merit or mines that are actually making money, so much for the better for them and for my share prices.
Agreed. You mentioned gold silver ratio. What is gold silver ratio of 90 telling you? Is that the gold is expensive and that silver is undervalued, or something else? What is that
Well,
ratio
that's the
telling
point,
you?
right? So people get all upset about the ratio opening wider and being extreme, and they say, "Oh, it's got to close." And well, if the use case for silver has changed, it doesn't have to close. But B, if it does close, it can close by gold coming down as much as by silver going up.
Mhm.
So an extreme gold silver ratio is no reason to be bullish on silver. It's neutral actually to the one metal or the other. and then we'll have to see. So in this case, because I am bullish on gold, I think it is bullish for silver. But I have never found the ratio itself, however extreme it might be, to be a good predictor of the movements of one or the other prices. Now, once the ratio starts moving, if it starts collapsing, like the last time it moved from 120, whatever it was, down to the 90s and 80s, that came with a big move in the prices. So the ratio itself doesn't tell me anything, but movements in the ratio can signal strength in a market trend.
Yeah, gold was your top pick in 2024, if I remember correctly. How do you actually see gold performing next? We had a very good run. Is it time for a breather, or we could see more upside with the current geopolitical mess, unprecedented gold flows from London to New York, central banks buying a lot more. How do you view it?
Yeah, all of those things have none of them surprise me, but they all surprise me with their magnitude and the impact. So I've and people say, "Oh, you turned bearish on gold this year, Lobo, because you like copper better," and that's not true. I've never articulated a bear case for gold. I just said that last year we had this hockey stick, and yay, I nailed that. And by the way, in 23, it wasn't gold. I'm not a perma gold bug, right? In 23, it was uranium, and that
Uranium.
worked out
Yep, I
really well.
remember.
So this year, it's neither. This year, it's copper. We'll see if I'm right. And that's a by the end of the year projection or guess, by the way. Um, Copper has moved already this year, but not for the reasons that I expected it. So I'm not trying to claim credit for copper yet. We'll see what happens. But so the answer to your question is, we had this great hockey stick move. It did wonders for my portfolio and for my clients. Yay. But to ask the market to deliver two hockey sticks in a row is a big ask. Whereas copper, at least at the time last year, was relatively cheap when I made that call. So my view is, though, that to answer your question, is that the strength in the gold market has surprised me. I would have thought, like in late December, that some correction, a bit of a breather, would be normal and healthy at this point. That's probably still true, but the world hasn't waited for us. Trump hasn't helped any. The whole reordering, and I don't want to get too much into the politics, but let's say, like, even if I believed in everything Trump was doing, even if I had a MAGA hat, right, I wouldn't want to be blind about the implications of huge changes. And Trump's little disruption, that's not a little disruption. But Scott Bessent, to be fair, he's been fairly blunt and I think straightforward in his answers on these questions. And the R word is out there, right? Recession. Just this morning, I saw the New York Times reporting that Trump's admitting that there might be a recession and saying it was worth it. I'm glad to see a little bit of more forthrightness there. So don't take me wrong. I'm certainly not opposed to tax cuts or government efficiency, eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. All that I really like. Deregulation, I think, is even more important, and digging deeper into the deep state. Fixing the judges, getting judges that have some common sense or don't have some other, WEF type agenda or something in there. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm all in favor of that. But it's a big deal. It's a big disruption. This is rocking the boat. I mean, just look at what's going on with Canada and Europe, and by the way, not to go on forever on this, but I think this is an investable point or an investable thesis here that changes the boat rocking that's happening now. That doesn't go away. Even if Trump goes away in 4 years, I don't think the Europeans decide, oh, well, that was just Trump. We can trust America the way we did before. I don't see that happen. They're going like, wow, these Americans, they elected Trump twice. Maybe it's better now, but we can't take the chance that there won't be another Trump or an even Trumpier Trump in the future, right? So I think the changes that we're seeing in the world now, they have investment consequences. The most obvious one is Europe's rearmament. I mean, wow, we are celebrating Germany rearming. What kind of world is that, right? But that's not going away. And that's, these are investable trends. So I think it pays, my goal isn't to be a cheerleader for one side or the other, or even for one metal or for the other. my job is to call them like I see them and try to provide the most useful and accurate guidance I can. So I think these changes are big. I think they're one way. I think that applies to gold too. The central bank buying, that's not coming undone. So invest accordingly.
Yeah, changes are big and the market is volatile. And actually, a lot of people are saying that the stock market is more volatile than before. I disagree. It has always been volatile, actually. When you invest in commodity sector, especially junior resource sector, regardless of the commodity, volatility is nothing new to me personally. But yes, agreed. We are maybe in a bit more volatile times where politics can lift the
But
market
let
by
me jump in just
20% in
just
few days.
briefly. Let me jump in. I think when people say that, they're not talking about the VIX, or they're not talking about daily fluctuations. I think they're saying we're worried that US equities are going to tank. And I think that's a legitimate worry.
Yeah, no. Actually, I agree on that. Yeah. They look for the U.S. Equity market, not the VIX. Agreed on that.
Right. And meanwhile, across the pond where you are, stocks are doing well. I'm a metals and mining due diligence guy, so I can't tell you which, European defense company or whatever other over there is a good investment. But I think to the degree that there's this risk in the U.S. equities, that's a tailwind for European equities and also other places.
Yeah, yeah. Lobo, I will not ask you to tell me if we will see a market crash, market correction. Okay, but let's say we do see some market correction. What commodities do you see recover first if we see a market correction or even a market crash? Or do you see any commodity actually decouple from the big corrections?
That last question is kind of interesting, and the answer might actually be uranium
Mhm.
because it's already so beaten up. I mean, we're getting to the point now where it has fallen to the low end of the incentive level. Where if I wasn't already building my uranium mine because high prices cure high prices, right? And we had all these new mines or old mines coming back online. If I wasn't already doing that, I would not start this at the low 60s.
Yeah.
I don't, there's maybe one or two projects out there in kind of scary jurisdictions that might be able to make money at those levels, but no, I mean, so I think we have flipped that on its head, and we're coming to a point where at some point low prices will have to cure low prices in the uranium space. So that being the case, it might be more insulated from a broader market downturn, even though it is an energy mineral. I would expect oil to fall hard, but I wouldn't expect uranium to be completely immune. It would move, I'm sure. It wouldn't just stay rock solid. But I would see less downside because there's so much downside already priced in, and I think incorrectly. I think uranium's oversold. Um, but when there is an actual crash, everything gets whacked, including gold. And it's not because gold isn't doing its job or it's no longer a safe haven asset. You're not, and you know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
Gold bugs know this, but it's worth remembering. It's not because gold is failing. It's because actually it's doing its job. It's serving as that source of liquidity in last, resort. When you sell what you can, when your margin clerk calls and says, you need to send us XYZ, $100,000 or $1 billion or whatever, you sell what you can. And so, yeah, I would expect everything to get whacked, commodities included, all commodities, including gold. And then the real question, I mean, like that's obvious. We all know that's coming, but it's the V question, right? What comes back? And the last several times, but in particular, the last time was very interesting because of what we were talking before with silver, is that gold came back right away and silver did that I've fallen and can't get up thing. So it'll be very interesting to me to see if we do get a crash, and I'm not saying that we will, because remember, the Fed put, right? The bad news could actually trigger the markets to go higher. So I'm absolutely not promising a crash. But if we get one, it'll be very telling to see how silver tracks and if it tracks gold or not, or if it, and so we'll see. But the number one bets for rebounds would be gold. The number one bet for less impact at all would be uranium. But I think it would not be long before you would see the metals that are actually facing supply issues, like copper, come back anyway, because I do think the response is inflationary no matter what. So that's bullish for copper. And if your sources are dried up, we'll see. So that's why I'm expecting copper to rise by the end of this year.
Okay, we will touch on copper after you open the topic of uranium. I want to continue with uranium. So, is uranium a speculator's heaven right now? A depressed and hated sector with superb fundamentals and with some crazy valuation in certain stocks? Or do you
Yeah,
think
our
it can
friend
hold?
Rick Rule likes to say, I love hate, hate makes me rich, and
Yeah.
I understand the thesis. And it's so funny. I posted a story about I don't even remember which it was, but like 6 new reactors, something like that. I posted this, yay! And some person who was clearly burned in the downturn immediately posted underneath, "Shut up!" Exclamation points, scammer. It's like, I didn't even say anything. I just posted this story about reactors. I didn't say, buy this, or I promise it's going up, tomorrow, or right, or I didn't even say it was going up. I said, the nuclear industry is going forward, onward and upward. And this person, and I actually, I'm kind of laughing, but I also I understand. A lot of people, they're very emotional. They chase momentum, and if you bought at the top in late 23 or early 24, you're in a world of hurt now. And if somebody in late 23, early 24 was saying, "Oh, uranium is a safe bet. There's not enough. It's going to the moon. Pile in now," you would think that person's a scammer. Of course, I was the one getting rotten tomatoes in early 24 for saying a correction was likely. So it's kind of funny that this person shouted at me. But I don't want to go too on much about this. But the point is, to your question, is that yeah, the hate is there, and the price is down, the spot price is down, and the share prices are down, even in the best in the space. Meanwhile, long-term contract hasn't budged at all. It's still up there. So it's almost a perfect storm. The only problem with this, in my view, is the denuclearization scare. Now, note that I said scare, not fact.
Mhm.
I don't think, you know, I don't think there's a snowball chance in hell that either the Chinese or Russians are going to disarm.
Same here.
They might announce some feel good thing just to, have a positive vibe or something, decommission a few leftover warheads from the 60s or something. But I don't think it'll be material. I don't even think it'll happen. But if it does, I don't think it'll be material. And even the immaterial impact would be years down the road. So it's completely irrelevant to the market now. But when has Mr. Market been perfectly rational, right? So the scare does matter. Like the reality, I'm not worried about at all. But Trump keeps talking about it. He just talked about it the day before yesterday in an interview, and how bad the nuclear weapons are, and we have more than 100 times we need, and blah blah blah. So I do think that scare is not helping right now, and that's the one reason why I don't want to be like the guy who burned this poor man who thinks I'm a scammer, right? I don't want to say, oh yes, it's perfectly safe. This is the bottom. It can't get any lower. If I say that and it goes lower, somebody's going to get hurt. So I want to be cautious, and I want to be respectful of the people out there who, you know, um, that said, I got to say, man, it's just killing me. The bargains out there. I just want to, I never go all in, but I'm actually feeling that, Lucian. I'm feeling like I just want to take all my chips and just push it into the uranium space, because these prices are just stupid.
I know the feeling. The feeling is mutual. When I see a scenario where a uranium developer is priced like a uranium explorer without any discovery or drilling, I tend to go all in as well. Yeah, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. Of course, we have to be cautious, as in every sector. There are good companies, there are bad companies, of course. Lobo, copper. Why copper? Why is copper on your on the top of your list for 2025? And where do you see really the price going this year?
So I don't do price targets, but just to play along here, let's say I'm thinking that $6 by the end of the year would not surprise me. Okay, that's not a target, but directionally,
Okay.
whether it goes there or not, I'll be very happy if I get the direction right. The thesis is primarily based on just inflation. You know, the Trump agenda, unless Doge can actually save trillions of dollars this year, even if it can in time, I'm very skeptical that it can do so right away. Uh, and if you look at the bill that Congress just passed, that's looks just like a bill they would have passed under Biden. It's a spendaholic bill. The money helicopters stay in the air. So the current outlook is inflationary. And Doge has to prove itself, in my view, and not just prove itself. And I see that they're doing stuff, but they need to do stuff on a scale that actually matters to balance the federal budget. I mean, it's astounding to hear Trump talk about balancing the budget. I would be delighted if that could happen. But for that to happen, there'd be a lot of pain, and I don't know that Trump can handle that pain, but we'll see, I guess. And there's no reason to bet on that now. That's just politicians talking. Well, okay, it's Musk talking too. But show me, don't tell me. Nobody has ever done what they're promising. Like nobody ever. So show me. Meanwhile, the outlook is highly inflationary. So that's good for commodities as a class, but not all commodities are created equal. Like this commodity super cycle thing, that's true, but like if you look at things over decades, like things tend to move roughly together over decades, rising and fall. At any given time or any given year, things can respond in very different ways. I mean, just look at copper and oil right now, for example. A reader just asked me about this, and it's an excellent question, because if copper is the new oil, right? In the electrified day, copper is the mineral like oil that's essential to wire everything and make the world go round. So right now we have both. If Dr. Copper is up now, signaling a booming economy, why isn't oil up? Well, there are actual reasons for that. One is the economy may not be booming. Dr. Copper could be up just because of the tariff noise, yeah, which I think has happened. I mean, it clearly coincided at least with the tariff noise. So that's not signaling economic strength. That's signaling supply constraint in the U.S. Oil is not the subject of tariff talk right now, so completely different. Plus, you've got voluntary supply constraint. In my view, this is the more important or durable variable. You've got OPEC plus still, even though they're talking about loosening, they're still under voluntary supply constraint. They've got more oil they could sell than they think the market can handle. That is not the case in copper. There's some debate as to whether or not the market is imbalanced this year or not, but I think the people who think there's plenty of copper, I think they underestimate the number of things that can go wrong, like Cobre Panama and something. Their models seem to be based on everybody doing what they say they're going to do, building what they say they're going to build on time, on budget, and that just never happens. So I don't think copper is going to be in balance this year, actually, and I think that imbalance widens going forward. And pretty much everybody, even the people who think the copper market is balanced now, expect it to go into imbalance, expect supply deficits going forward and widening. And most importantly, they expect it even without EVs or AI or any of these other tailwinds. These are potential tailwinds that are new. The supply deficit grows even without that. So for all of these reasons, I'm looking at an inflationary environment could lift commodities, but not all commodities are the same. And copper is the one that, to me, has the most ironclad case for supply not being there, especially if the money helicopters fly again. And we were, right now, as you and I speak, there's a new round of stimulus from China, which has been interpreted and as moving copper right now. So if that continues, and if Europe continues, I mean, if Europe rearms, that takes a lot of like actual real physical stuff, iron, copper, aluminum, the works, even silver, by the way, more than gold. So, there is big money, trillions of dollars around the world that can move into these spaces. And people get mad at me for doing this if it's their favorite mineral again, but the contra example isn't really so much oil, but in the mining space, it would be something like nickel, where the Indonesians or others are producing like there's no tomorrow, or lithium, which isn't rare to begin with. And boy, is there been a lot of build out in the lithium space. And so even if the demand rebounds, I see idle supply in or excess supply in both of those that could easily meet that demand. So the economy could go up, the helicopters could rain money, demand could go up, and I expect copper to go up, but that may not happen for lithium or nickel or cobalt or some of these others.
Yeah, we covered a lot of commodities today. So uranium, silver, copper, oil, lithium. What else is on your radar for 2025 as a commodity that could perform good?
Right now, those are my favorite, right? For everything else, I'm waiting to see if something moves. And I guess maybe one thing I'd also say is, beware of political fiat. So, for example, right now we have, the rare earths are something that China can play tough with the US on. And, that could actually produce pretty durable increases in those prices. But it's not like there's an actual supply constraint. It's a political decision in Beijing. And if Trump makes a new deal, remember his big trade deal last time around, so they were going to buy more soybeans or whatever, and it kind of fell apart. But he eased off when China said, okay, we'll buy more stuff. If that happens this time, and you've bet big on rare earths or antimony or antimony, depending on one of these things, right? And then a political decision that you can't get out of that position fast enough. You wake up to that headline and the price is just cratered. There's nothing you can do about that. So I'm not saying stay out. Actually, I think that the last time it took Trump something like 9 months to negotiate a deal. Could take longer. That the tough on China rhetoric is hard to walk back. So there could be enough time to benefit from some of these other metals. But if you go there, just make sure you understand that you can literally wake up in the morning and see a major loss of capital. You have to be willing to take that risk to go there.
Yeah, final question, Lobo. Do you think it's a smart move to get more cash, to stick with more cash, especially in these volatile times, and take advantage of pullbacks like in uranium and similar?
Yes, I am definitely building cash. I do think so.
Okay, that was a short and good answer, and I like those kind of answers. That was Lobo Tigre. Lobo, thank you for coming to my show. Great chat as always, and I look forward to host you again.
Thank you, Lucian.